In the name of the living God, the Creator, Redeemer, and Sustainer. Tell us then, what do you think? Is it lawful to pay taxes to the emperor or not? The Pharisees, apparently a faction that was perhaps competing with the faction that Jesus led. They're Pharisees. Their name means separated. Perhaps we should consider separated in the sense of holy, of set apart. And then the Herodians, the supporters of King Herod, probably being well taken care of by King Herod, they've joined together these two political adversaries, joined together to try to pull Jesus into a dispute in the public sphere. You see, they had political division even then. They present Jesus with what is known as a false dichotomy. It's the kind of question where you may be tempted to give a yes or no answer, but in fact, it is not necessarily a yes or no answer. You see that kind of questioning a lot when the press is questioning a political candidate, or when political candidates pose questions to each other. It's sort of like if someone were to ask you, have you given up stealing? Don't answer that question, because either way you would be admitting to being a thief. It's a trap. And here is the problem for Jesus. Audrey West writes in the Christian Century this week, if Jesus supports the tax, the Pharisees can accuse him of disloyalty to God. If he opposes the tax, the Herodians can charge him with sedition, or at the very least, ensure that his name appears on the first century equivalent of an FBI watch list. But Jesus dodges the question and makes them think. Does earthly government have its own sphere, or does God have a piece in that also? I'm embarrassed to tell you that when I turned 21, I had decided that I would never vote. I was convinced, as only a young, callow person can be convinced, that I would never have enough information to be certain who was the right candidate or party to vote for. But that year was 1963, and when JFK was assassinated, I realized that I was bound up in history whether I wanted to be or not. And I have voted in every election since then, but I vote with great humility, because I still know that I can never be sure that I'm choosing the best option. I'm no authority in public policy, and that's why I will never presume to tell you who to vote for. But to tell you to vote, that is something that I, as your pastor, must tell you to do. It is the teaching of the Episcopal Church. Our presiding bishop, Michael Curry, has written, voting is how a community or a nation decides how the moral values that it holds and shares, how those moral values shape public policy and the lives of people. Michael Curry. In a democracy, everything our nation does is done in our name. And voting is one of the ways that we fulfill our baptismal promise to strive for justice and peace. So with that in mind, I am going to tell you who you shouldn't vote for. Don't vote for yourself. Don't vote for yourself. What I mean by that is, don't just ask yourself which candidate or which party is going to make me better off. Instead, vote for your neighbor. Vote with the poor, the ones who go to bed hungry at night, because Jesus fed such as them. Vote with the sick, the ones who can't afford to go to a doctor, because Jesus healed such as them. Vote for those who weep over loved ones killed by their fellow citizens, because Jesus taught us to love our neighbors as ourselves. Vote as though you know that the voting booth is our very own dangerous road to Jericho, where one day a Samaritan rescued a naked stranger who had been left for dead by robbers and overlooked by others. Vote for the kingdom, the one Jesus died for. Amen.